Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the gritty, action-packed world of one of the most infamous gangs in history, the Peaky Blinders. You've probably heard the term, but what's the real story behind this notorious gang from Birmingham? Stick around because we're about to uncover the truth behind the Peaky Blinders and their rise to power in post-Victorian England. The story of the Peaky Blinders begins in the late 19th century in the industrial heart of England, Birmingham. Now, if you're thinking of gangsters in the usual places like London or Chicago, think again. The Peaky Blinders emerged from the industrial slums of Birmingham, a city that was rapidly expanding due to the booming economy of the time. The gang's name comes from their signature look. They were known to wear flat caps, and rumour has it that they sewed razor blades into the peaks of those caps. It's not clear if this was true, but it makes for a good story. The idea was that the blades could be used as a weapon to slash their enemies across the face or eyes when a fight broke out. But more on that later. The Peaky Blinders were a street gang that first emerged in the aftermath of the First World War, but their roots trace back even further. In the 1890s, they were a small but organised criminal gang in Birmingham, who engaged in everything from petty theft to more serious activities like robbery, extortion, and even murder. They were made up primarily of working-class men, many of whom had served in the war, which gave them a hardened, brutal edge. They were also known for their fierce loyalty to one another, which made them a formidable force. So, how did they grow from a small gang into one of the most feared criminal organisations in England? Well, it all started with the leadership of Thomas Shelby, the character we all know and love from the TV series. But before we get into the fictional world, let's talk about the real-life leaders. The Peaky Blinders were originally led by a man named Thomas "Tommy" Shelby. He was a charismatic and ruthless leader who rose to prominence through his involvement in organised crime, particularly in illegal gambling, smuggling, and betting. He ran operations across the city, using violence and intimidation to maintain control. But he didn't just rule through fear. He also built a network of influence by connecting with politicians, law enforcement, and businessmen. This network helped the Peaky Blinders expand their operations into the broader criminal world. By the early 20th century, they controlled much of Birmingham's underground economy, and their influence stretched into various sectors, from illegal betting to running protection rackets in the local pubs and markets. They weren't the only gang in town, though. There were several others vying for control, but what set the Peaky Blinders apart was their organisation and their ruthlessness. Like all criminal empires, the Peaky Blinders' reign eventually came to an end. By the 1920s, the gang's influence began to fade. As the world around them changed, so did the methods of organised crime. New gangs emerged and law enforcement began to crack down on the kind of violent crime the Peaky Blinders were known for. One of the main reasons for their decline was the changing political landscape in England. The rise of the Labour Party and the growing influence of unions meant that the old ways of operating in the shadows were no longer as effective. Also, law enforcement had started to become more organised and focused on targeting the Peaky Blinders, who had made many enemies over the years. Additionally, internal strife and a changing world meant that the gang's leadership became fragmented. Many members were either imprisoned or killed, and the once powerful gang eventually splintered and faded into history. Although the Peaky Blinders gang has long since dissolved, their legacy lives on. The image of the sharp-dressed, flat-cap-wearing gangster has become iconic, a symbol of the gritty, ruthless world of early 20th century crime. Today, the Peaky Blinders are remembered as one of the most notorious and influential gangs of the era. Their story represents the complex and often violent intersection of class, crime, and power in post-Victorian England. And there you have it. From a small-time street gang to an internationally recognized symbol of organized crime, the Peaky Blinders have left a mark on history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the real history behind the gang, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. See you in the next video.